By the banks of a river or lagoon, when darkness thickens and the wind stirs the leaves, some say you might still hear her. A mournful, heart-piercing cry. Ay, mis hijos. Donde están mis hijos? Oh, my children. Where are my children? She is La Llorona, the weeping woman, a phantom mother doomed to roam the night, searching for children she lost or killed. Some say she lures children to watery graves. Others say her wail is enough to send a parent's heart racing. This is not just a ghost story told to frighten children. La Llorona is a mirror of loss, of grief, of guilt, of how love can twist into eternal sorrow. Her story has many faces. We will walk through her origins, her transformations across regions, her modern reinterpretations, and her enduring power in our imaginations. The precise origin of La Llorona is hard to pin down. The legend likely grew through oral tradition over centuries, blending indigenous, colonial, and Christian elements. Some scholars draw parallels between La Llorona and pre-Hispanic mythic figures, such as the Aztec earth goddess Coatlicue, who once wept for her children at a time of cosmic change. Others suggest that La Llorona is a reinvention or adaptation of maternal grief archetypes found in many cultures. As Spanish colonization took hold in Mexico and Central America, indigenous beliefs, Catholic doctrine, and Spanish cultural motifs intermingled. Ghost stories, cautionary tales, and oral tradition merged. It is in this crucible that La Llorona likely solidified into the form many know today. During the colonial era, stories about La Llorona also took on social and cultural functions. In some versions, she is tied symbolically to La Malinche, Dona Marina, the Nahua interpreter and companion of Hernán Cortés, who is often treated ambivalently in Mexican memory. Some retellings blur La Llorona and La Malinche, making the wailing mother a symbol of betrayal, loss of agency, or hybrid identity. In frontier areas or newly colonized zones, the legend often became a moral tale for children, warning them not to wander near rivers at night, not to misbehave, and to heed parental warnings. Over time, La Llorona's story adapted to local conditions. Lakes, canals, deserts, rivers, and across Latin America, her shape and behavior would shift. A woman, often named Maria, marries or loves a man. They have children, usually two. The husband becomes unfaithful, neglects her, or abandons her. In a moment of rage, despair, or jealousy, Maria drowns her children in a river or lake. She regrets it immediately, but the deed is done. She may kill herself or attempt to. In the afterlife or purifier, she is denied rest until she finds her children, condemned to wander the earth, especially near water, weeping. Her cry is heard at night. Some say it warns, others say it lures or threatens. She is often portrayed wearing a white, flowing dress, long hair, sometimes wet, drifting near water. In some adaptations, she will snatch children or drag misbehaving ones into water. In Mexico, the common version tells of a beautiful woman named Maria who marries a wealthy rancher or man of status and bears two children. Over time, the husband becomes distant or strays with another woman. One day, Maria takes her children to a river and drowns them in a fit of rage or despair. Immediately realizing what she's done, she cries out in anguish, "Ay, mis hijos." Some versions say she drowns herself or tries to. Upon death, she is barred from heaven, compelled to wander rivers, lakes, and canals, forever crying for her lost children. In Mexican storytelling, her cry is a warning. Stray too close to water at night, and she may tempt or drag you away. Many parents use the story to keep children close or obedient. The song La Llorona is also deeply associated in Mexico, often sung during Dia de los Muertos, with lyrics weaving in elements of love, loss, longing, and heartbreak. In Guatemala, a prominent version holds that a woman had an affair, gave birth secretly, and drowned her child to spare her spouse the shame. She roams neighborhoods and near bodies of water crying for Juan de la Cruz, or other names. A curious motif in some Guatemalan telling. If the cry of "I, mis hijos" is heard from a distance, it means she is close. If heard nearby, she is afar. That inversion is a folkloric trick to heighten fear in the listener. In Andean versions, She may be called La Llorona de los Rios or La Llorona de los Andes, tying her to mountain rivers. Some say she drowned children after the death of a lover, or in grief, or as a desperate act when abandoned. Her cries echo up riverbanks, lakesides, or in misty valleys. In the southwest U.S., especially among Mexican-American communities, La Llorona has crossed cultural lines. She appears in Texas, Arizona, California folklore. In Texas lore, she is one of the most famous ghosts. Parents might tell children in Spanish, "If you're bad, La Llorona will come for you." In some versions, she walks along canals or accent creeks and calls children by name. In Venezuela, La Llorona is sometimes said to have died of sorrow after her children were killed or after she killed them herself. Villagers might place crosses to ward off her spirit. In Spain, there is a story of Elvira, La Llorona, a woman broken by tragedy, whose narrative echoes the wailing mother archetype. At her core, La Llorona is a mother who has lost her children, by her own hand or through betrayal. Her endless searching is an embodiment of grief that cannot be resolved. She is a tragic figure rather than a mere monster. Her story raises questions about the extremes of love, how maternal devotion can twist into guilt, and how loss can haunt far beyond death. Many versions hinge on the betrayal of the husband or lover. Maria's despair is often triggered by infidelity, neglect, or emotional abandonment. Her response is destructive and her punishment eternal. In some tellings, she drowns her children to spite or punish the father. In others, the children are casualties of her emotional breakdown. This dynamic makes La Llorona a metaphor for broken promises, shattered trust, and the destructive power of betrayal, especially in unequal gender dynamics. Water is central: rivers, lakes, canals, creeks. Water is a liminal boundary, life/death, known/unknown. La Llorona lingers at that threshold, ever oscillating between the living world and the realm of spirits. Because water is dangerous, unpredictable, it becomes a natural locus for ghost stories. Her presence at water warns of the danger, but also of hidden depths, memory, and the past's pull. In many cultural contexts, La Llorona's story is used to admonish children, especially to keep them from wandering at night or near water. It functions as a cautionary or disciplinary tale. But beyond discipline, La Llorona has also been reinterpreted as a critical voice, a manifestation of anxiety about family, migration, abandonment, and cultural trauma. For Chicana/O scholars, she is sometimes refigured as a powerful emblem of resistance and communal memory. Her punishment is eternal wandering, never finding rest. She cannot enter heaven without her children, in many versions. Her cries are perpetual. She exists between worlds. This idea mirrors many ghost myths globally. Those with unresolved trauma, guilt, or injustice cannot rest. La Llorona has transcended folklore to become a potent cultural icon. The folk song La Llorona is among the most famous Mexican traditional songs. Its origins are murky. Some say it was first heard around 1941 in the Isthmus of Tehuantepec. In the song, the singer addresses La Llorona, sometimes as a lover turned ghost, sometimes as lamenting the singer's own sorrow and guilt. Verses often reference Campo Santo, cemetery, mourning, and being unable to leave her side. Many famous Mexican singers, Chavila Vargas, Lila Downs, etc., have performed versions. The song is often featured in Dia de los Muertos celebrations. The song reinforces the emotional gravity of her story. It is not just terror, but a melancholic longing. Folklorists have examined La Llorona from multiple angles: gender, memory, hybridity, post-colonial identity. In Chicana/O literature, she appears as a motif of diaspora, loss of maternal ties, and cultural grief. Some stories recast her not merely as a monster, but as a victim of cultural dislocation, betrayal, or abandonment. Also, anthologies and short story collections often include retold versions of La Llorona, sometimes modern, sometimes gothic, sometimes psychological. La Llorona has appeared in many film adaptations and horror works. The Curse of La Llorona, 2019, a horror film that ties into the Conjuring universe. The Legend of La Llorona, 2022, a film where a family traveling to Mexico is haunted by the spirit. Classic Mexican films. La Llorona, 1933, La Maldición de la Llorona, 1963, and others. Television episodes, horror anthologies, and series often use La Llorona's myth as an episode plotline, especially in Latin America. These cinematic treatments tend to emphasize the spooky, the supernatural, and the jump scares, but more interesting ones also probe her emotional core and cultural meaning. We can view La Llorona through psychological and socio-cultural lenses. La Llorona embodies trauma that never heals. Her continued wandering is memory dragging itself into the present. She cannot rest until the wrong is made right, a metaphor for guilt, for regret. In societies with histories of colonization, displacement, and lost identities, La Llorona can symbolize collective grief, for children lost to migration, for ruptured families, for cultural losses. La Llorona is deeply tied to motherhood and the expectations, pressures, and sometimes destructive extremes of maternal love. Her story is a caution but also a lament. What happens when a mother is unmoored, betrayed, or marginalized? Some feminist readings recast her as a figure of revolt. Her cry is not just a curse, but a voice for voiceless maternal anguish. Ghosts often mark the boundary between life and death, known and unknown. La Llorona straddles that line. Her presence warns that the past is not dead. She reminds us that what we bury, trauma, guilt, mistakes, may return. Over time, artists, writers, and filmmakers have reshaped La Llorona for new audiences and contexts. In contemporary horror, she is often blended with other ghost tropes, possession, demonic influence, cursed objects. In diaspora communities, she may be adapted to local settings, urban canals, suburban lakes, drainage ditches. Some storytellers invert the narrative. Perhaps she was falsely accused, perhaps her children died by accident, or perhaps she is a spectral protector rather than predator. Graphic novels, comics, short stories offer hybrid retellings, blending folklore, realism, and speculative fiction. These adaptations keep her alive and malleable to new cultural fears, migration, domestic violence, broken families, alienation. In the hills above Antigua, Guatemala, the legend of La Llorona echoes in whispered tales by local elders. They speak of a woman named Juana, who fell in love with a traveling merchant. Their affair was secret, hidden from her husband, and when she bore a child, fear and shame gripped her. Some say she drowned her child in the Rio de las Tormentas, sorrow mingled with desperation. Others claim her husband never learned of the child. The secret haunts her spirit. At night, somewhere between the mist and the glow of distant lamps, people say you might hear, "Ay, Juanito," which signals she is near. But the trick of distance is key. From far away, the cry sounds close. Nearby, it sounds distant. This inversion unsettles listeners, who cannot trust their ears. In some Guatemala tellings, when La Llorona appears outside a house, she knocks, calling children by name. Listening for her voice, if you don't respond, she moves on. But if you do, she might enter and take what she believes is her child. To ward her off, families leave blankets, keep children indoors after dark, or place salt at thresholds. This Guatemalan variant illustrates how the legend adapts to local topography and social norms. The inversion of the cry's distance adds psychological terror. The detail of selective knocking implies a personal reckoning, perhaps calling your name or testing your soul. From a thematic lens, this version foregrounds shame, secret births, and the terror of parental yearning. The ghost becomes not just a wailing figure, but a boundary, a demand to confront the hidden, the forbidden. There are stories that fade with time, and there are stories that refuse to die. In the quiet hours of the night, when the air grows cold and rivers reflect the moon like glass, a cry echoes across Latin America, a cry so sorrowful, so filled with grief, that even the bravest hearts stop to listen. "Ay, mis hijos. Oh, my children." The voice belongs to La Llorona, the weeping woman, a spirit said to wander the banks of rivers and lakes, eternally mourning the loss of her children and eternally searching for them. Across centuries and continents, her legend has haunted families, terrified travelers, and inspired countless tales of love, betrayal, and regret. But who was she? Where did she come from? And why does her story continue to echo through generations? From the canals of Mexico City to the Rio Grande in Texas, from Guatemalan villages to American suburbs, sightings of a pale woman in white have been reported for more than 400 years. Each retelling adds something new, yet the sorrow remains the same. She is more than a ghost. She is a symbol of motherhood, of grief, of the human capacity for both love and destruction. Throughout Latin America, children grow up hearing her story whispered at bedtime, not as entertainment, but as warning. A tale to keep them safe from rivers at night, and to remind them that choices have consequences. But as with all legends, beneath the horror lies truth. And the truth of La Llorona may be older, deeper, and far more human than anyone dares to believe. Every legend has a birthplace. But La Llorona's origins are like the rivers she haunts, shifting, ancient, and impossible to trace to a single source. Her story is not just one woman's tragedy. It is a reflection of centuries of faith, conquest, and cultural fusion, a mirror held up to the soul of Latin America itself. To uncover her beginnings, we must look far beyond the Spanish Empire, to the sacred world of the Aztecs, long before the arrival of the conquistadors. In the empire of the Aztecs, the people worshipped many gods, each tied to the cycles of life, death, and rebirth. Among them was Cihuacotl, the serpent woman. She was a powerful goddess of motherhood and fertility, known as a guardian of women who died during childbirth. But she was also a harbinger of doom. According to Aztec chronicles, on the eve of the Spanish conquest, the people of Tenochtitlan heard the cry of a woman in the night. She was said to wander the streets, veiled in white, crying out, "Oh, my children, where shall I take you?" Many believed she was Cihuacotl, mourning the fate of her people, a divine mother who foresaw the destruction of her civilization. When Hernán Cortés and his army arrived in 1519, the prophecy came true. The Aztec world fell, and the old gods faded. But their echoes remained, especially the cry of the weeping mother. As the Spanish imposed Christianity, the myths of the indigenous people began to change. The goddess became a ghost. Her divine sorrow was transformed into sin and punishment. Under the weight of colonization, the legend began to evolve, blending native spirituality with Catholic morality. From this collision of two worlds, La Llorona was born. She was no longer a goddess mourning her people. She was now a mortal woman, beautiful, flawed, and human, punished for her sins by divine justice. It is in this transformation that her story takes on new meaning. Because La Llorona is not only a spirit of grief, she is also a reflection of conquest, a story born from the guilt, loss, and pain of a nation torn between two identities. As generations passed, storytellers added their own details. In rural villages, she became a warning to children, a tale told around the fire to keep them from wandering too close to the water at night. "Don't go near the river after dark," mothers would whisper, "or La Llorona will take you," thinking you're one of her lost children. In other regions, she was a spirit of vengeance, punishing unfaithful lovers and ungrateful parents. Her cry became not only a sound of sorrow, but of judgment. Yet across all versions, one truth remained constant. She was always a mother, a woman who lost her children and who could never find peace again. In this way, the legend became more than myth. It became a moral compass, a reminder of the sacred bond between mother and child and the tragedy that unfolds when that bond is broken. But historians believe the earliest written record of La Llorona, as we know her, appeared in the 16th century. Spanish priests traveling through Mexico and Central America began documenting indigenous stories. One of them, Fray Bernardino de Sahagun, recorded tales of the weeping woman of the night, a vision heard by many before the fall of Tenochtitlan. Was it superstition? Or was it the echo of something real, an ancestral memory of loss so deep that it transcended centuries? Over time, her tale adapted to every region it touched. In some, she was said to roam the lakes of Texcoco. In others, the canals of Xochimilco, or the rivers that crossed into Guatemala and El Salvador. Her cry changed languages, accents, and names, yet her sorrow was always understood. Folk historians believe the story survived because it spoke to everyone. The Spaniards saw in her the tragedy of sin and penance. The indigenous saw in her the grief of a motherland destroyed. and both saw a reflection of themselves, trapped between love and loss. There is something hauntingly human about La Llorona. Unlike the monsters of European folklore, vampires, witches, demons, she is not evil by nature. Her horror comes from sorrow. Her curse is love twisted by despair. And that is perhaps why her legend endured. Because she is not an outsider, she is one of us. A woman who loved too deeply, hurt too greatly, and was punished beyond death. So when we speak of La Llorona, we are not speaking of a single story, but of many, woven together over centuries. From goddess to ghost, from divine warning to maternal lament, she has worn many faces, all reflecting one truth, that grief, once awakened, never truly dies. And yet, even as we trace her divine and historical roots, one question remains unanswered. Who was the woman behind the legend? What mortal life could give birth to such an eternal cry? To find her, we must leave the temples of gods behind and step into the quiet village roads of colonial Mexico, where the story of a woman named Maria began. Every legend, no matter how vast, begins with a single story. And the story of La Llorona begins with a woman named Maria. Her name may change from one village to another, but her fate and her sorrow always remain the same. They say Maria was born in a small town along the banks of a wide, shimmering river, a place where the mountains met the clouds, and the air carried the scent of jasmine and wood smoke. She was known for her beauty, long dark hair, eyes like storm clouds, and a voice that could calm even the wildest child. But her beauty, they said, was both her gift and her curse. Maria came from a humble family. Her father was a farmer, her mother a washerwoman. From a young age, she dreamed of a life beyond the dusty village streets, a life of love, wealth, and admiration. One day, that dream seemed to come true. A nobleman, the son of a wealthy landowner, rode through town. He noticed Maria at the market, her laughter, her grace. He stopped, smiled, and from that moment, she was his world. Their love was passionate and fast, like a summer storm. He promised her a life of comfort, a house by the river, fine dresses, and endless affection. For Maria, he was everything she had ever wanted. And for a time, she was happy. They had 2 children, both beautiful, both adored. Maria spent her days caring for them, her nights singing lullabies by the water. She believed her love story was eternal. But love, as she would learn, is not always kind. With time, the nobleman began to change. He grew distant. His visits became rare, his words colder. Rumors spread through the village that he had returned to his family's estate, and that he was to marry a woman of his own class. Maria refused to believe it, until one evening, she saw it with her own eyes. She was walking with her children by the river when a carriage passed on the nearby road. Inside, she saw him, dressed in fine clothes, his arm around another woman. Their laughter cut through the air like a blade. Her children waved, calling out, "Papa." But he did not stop. He did not even look at them. Something inside Maria broke. In that instant, love turned into despair. Despair turned into fury. And fury into tragedy. They say she wandered the riverbank that night in silence, holding her children close. The moonlight shimmered across the water, turning it silver, beautiful, calm, and deep.